Right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever you are. And welcome to this International Women's Day celebration that is being organized by the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group, organizing committee members. We are having organizing committee members also today in the participants. And the whole team is very active. We try to organize events almost all year long on different topics that are very important for us to build gender balance in astronomy. And today's session on International Women's Day is about unveiling the gender imbalance efforts and consequences in astronomy and all the work that we have been doing until now. So what have we learned since last 3 years? Because I've been chairing this working group since last 3 years now. So what have we learned from whatever we have been doing together with all the surveys, and what is exactly needed to advance gender balance in astronomy? So I'm going to start with my presentation. It's just a short one to give you a kind of overview, and then we are going to listen to the invited speakers today. So I'll just share my screen. And there it is. Is it visible? Yeah. Okay. So,
yes, but
right.
it's not in presentation mode.
Yes, I'll put it in presentation mode. Is that okay now?
Yeah, now, yes.
All right. Okay, so there it is. So I'm Mamta Pommier. I'm chair of the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group. I'm a lecturer at the University Catholic of Lyon, which is a part of the Lyon University. And I welcome you all on behalf of our working group on this International Women's Day event. So the topic of discussion today is unveiling gender imbalance efforts. One moment, please, because we have some participants joining us. Sorry. Right, admit, yeah. Okay, so the topic of today's discussion is unveiling gender imbalance efforts and consequences in astronomy. And in this series, we look forward to welcoming astronomers from all over the world who have actually initiated some efforts in their institutes to empower women and girls in astronomy and to promote gender balance and diversity at their workplace, because it is important to develop this feeling of working together and being inclusive in research, and you can't just do your research in closed environment. So just to give you some background, when you look into this membership data of IAU, there are almost 12,500 members in all. And among these 12,500 members representing from the globe all over the world, we have 78.7% who are male and 21.2% who are female. So that's already shows that there is a complete gender imbalance in this field. And there is also a very marginal representation of other genders or unknown gender people in the membership. So they are having another group, working group, and this is mostly about the work we are doing with the Women in Astronomy Working Group. So why do we have this kind of gender imbalance in astronomy? And the main reason is the leaky pipeline effect that we have still not managed to repair. And this leaky pipeline effect is the main cause of gender imbalance in all the STEM fields, not just astronomy, but also engineering, also mathematics and informatics and many other such fields. And this leaky pipeline effect, along with the glass ceiling effect, which is all sorts of biases which exist in astronomy, we are in this kind of gender imbalance that we see. So statistics and data illustrate that women are underrepresented in STEM in astronomy, and also non-binary individuals are equally underrepresented in astronomy. So this is a very complicated slide, but what I would like you to concentrate on is that 4 divisions that are made. So you can see that the factors which are affecting, why do we have this leaky pipeline effect? So this is the graph of, or this is the representation of the leaky pipeline effect. We have PhD students at the age of 22, 24, when they join their PhD course. They are doing their PhD for 4 to 5 years. And at that point, the institutions or the organizations or universities encourage equal participation of male and female candidates for the PhD program. So we have a kind of 55% male and 45% female ratio in STEM fields. That is interesting because for the institutions, because the institution get enrollment fees. So that is good for the institution to run the structure. And at the same time, they are also getting recognition for implementing EDI and gender balance policies in their organizations at the higher academic levels. But once you have finished this PhD course and you enter into this postdoc phase, which starts from the age of 30, 32 onwards, up to, it can go up to 50 years, which is very astonishing, but that's the fact. You may remain in this postdoc and non-permanent situation for a long time. And at that point, you can slowly start to see that this percentage of male and female candidates starts to show a large variation. You have 75% male and 25% female. And what happens to all these females who were there before and who are not there anymore? That's because they are being systematically flushed out from the system. And that's this leaky pipeline effect. They are not being helped. They are not being retained into the system. They're not getting enough support, enough funds to continue with their career in research. So that goes on in the postdoc phase, and then you enter into this permanent position situation, which happens around 45 years or so, and that's where you are in this junior research position. And then junior researcher position, that's permanent positions, you may have 80% male and 20% female, and that's exactly what the IAU statistics is also showing. We have 80% male and 20% female in permanent positions. And we did this survey for many countries all over the world, and the number is either 20% or less than 20%. So that's really very surprising, that why we have less women in research and in astronomy. And then if you go towards senior research position, which is starting around 46 years and onwards, you can see there are, at senior researcher level, you have almost 5% female and 95% male in research. So that's where the whole decision-making comes in, policy-making comes in, and that's where women are less and less, and more decision-making committees are dominated by male researchers. Right. So this is the leaky pipeline effect, and the reason why women are being flushed out of the system or not being retained into the system, it's just because they start to embrace motherhood, they start to have children, family responsibilities, and as soon as they start to have that, they start to pick up part-time positions, or they are forced to take part-time positions, and they are having reduced mobility because of family responsibilities, and they're not having enough support from the institutions because they can't contribute 100%. So they won't be productive 100%. And as a result, their productivity goes down and they are becoming less interesting candidate to be given positions, permanent positions. And so that's the story. So mostly women are, and especially mothers, careers are affected in this whole leaky pipeline effect. And there are many other factors besides motherhood. We have done the survey and we collected the data, and this data comes from permanent researchers. We have published this result also. And the other factors that are affecting women career in research is the bias against women by both men and women, family responsibilities, discrimination, social stereotype, lack of support at work, few job opportunities, few flexibility, lack of women role models who could support a senior women, who could support younger women, glass ceiling effects, sexual harassment, mental harassment, family support, which is less, racism, lack of motivation because of all these problems, and many other factors are there. But all these results have been published, but these are the factors which are all holding them back. And at one point, they either start to give up or they don't manage to continue because they're forced to give up. So we really need role models, and role models are needed at every career stage. It's not just young people, it's not just old people. At every career stage we need it, so that people can have hope that, okay, we can still continue, because at this stage we can still have some possibilities looking at the role model. So all these factors are there, and these factors are adding to this leaky pipeline effect and the gender imbalance. And due to lack of awareness and support and funding, all this gender gap is visible in STEM fields. So we have this problem, we understand it, how to solve it. Well, so you have stereotype, you have bias, you have discrimination and neglect of or suppression of women expertise. All these factors are feeding to this glass ceiling effect, which we understand, which is kind of a barrier in the growth of the career of women researchers. And this glass ceiling effect feeds to gender imbalance. What happens if we have a gender imbalance at the workplace? It's a very unhealthy and unsafe working environment, as we have already seen with all the factors that I have listed before. So this is the situation, and how do we solve it? Well, one of the solutions is to stop this leaky pipeline effect. That means engage more graduates, which is already happening at university levels, but then recruit more women postdocs, retain mothers, carriers who have already spent 10 years and who have been working and who have continued to show good work. I think they should be given permanent position. There should be some rule for that. And sustain the women career and gender balance in astronomy. We need to do these efforts in order to have this gender balance. And how do we do that? By providing funds, by providing position, providing flexibility at workplace. We have understood how to work with flexible working hours after the COVID, and by providing mental and physical support. So after we understood all this with the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group since 2021, we came up with this 4-point plan of creating awareness, which will lead to sustainability of a women career in research, training and skill building, so that they get more up to date with new skills, because they work part-time, they don't have enough time to learn the skills. Fundraising and career retention, which is very important. We need to provide funds to support their careers, and dissemination and communication of results, which is equally important, so that everyone get to know what's the current situation, where are we standing today. We have been doing that. And so for that, we have been organizing several events. Like every year, we organize at least 9 to 10 events. And for example, in January, we organized a mentoring session. Then in the month of February, for this International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we organized a session in a college and in a school to encourage girls to pick up science career. And here we did not ask them to draw a scientist, which is what IAU outreach group is doing. What we asked the students to do is to draw a woman scientist. At that point, they had no choice, but they had to think about the science careers that they would like to pick up as a woman scientist and draw that. So male and female, both candidates, they participated, they drew, and they showed how women could also do all sides of interesting science. And I must say that it's not about that the women or the girl candidates were having reduced imagination and boys were having more developed imagination. They all were having a very, very good level of imagination, and they came up with all sorts of nice work. So it's not about the age, and it's not about the limitation in imagining things. It's something more than that. It's about role model, and it's about bringing them to such environment where they can see what women can do, and bringing to an environment where you can see and you can feel the presence of women and not only dominated by men. We also organized a session in a college in France, and there were female scientists who are really working in STEM fields, so maths or medical science or engineering, and we gave talks to encourage young people to take up science careers. Regarding fundraising, we are always writing proposals to get funds, and it doesn't always work. So that's always a challenge. And regarding dissemination and communication, so that's what we do with these kind of talk series. And we also organized a call for nomination for recognizing champions of gender equality in astronomy. And today's talk is about these champions. So I'll just quickly go through the results. So we organized this survey in the month of January, and what we got as a response for was nomination from all part of the world. So that's very good. We had a global representation or participation or nomination, as one would say. with 89% female candidates who are nominated as champion and 11% male. 11% male was already a very good participation for me, because usually the numbers are less than 5%, 2%, but this time we had 10% participation of male astronomers. So the nomination of male astronomers who are working towards establishing gender balance. So that's very nice. And among these participants, we have almost 75 participants, nominations. Among these nominees, we have 25% who are fixed-term researchers and 75% who are permanent researchers. So that's again very good, because one could see that permanent researchers are actually working towards establishing gender balance in astronomy. So I'll just stop here because we have one of the participants who wants to join us. Yeah, right. So what do we get then? So our survey shows that 11% of the nominees are male, 89% are female. There's only one male in the non-permanent position among the 25%, and others are female. So obviously more female are landing up in short-term, small-term contracts and part-time contracts, and they are mostly in non-permanent positions. And 25% of those who were surveyed, they hold permanent positions. So these findings, what do they show us? They show us the importance of doing this continued efforts to promote gender equality and to create more inclusive environment within the field of astronomy. We're going further. Among these nominations, we wanted to see how many, how many countries participated. So there were many countries who have participated, and most of the nominations are actually from America. So we have North America, shown in blue, with 32% participation, then South America, 16%, 26% nominations were from Europe. So Europe, many countries, with leading from France, Italy, Germany, Finland, and then other countries. 8% from UK. So that's very important. Country like UK, which is smaller than whole Europe, is having 8% nominations. So a lot of gender balance activity seems to be going on in these countries, with 6% from Africa, 5% from Oceania, 5% Asia, and 2% Middle East. So this shows that already these countries, North America, South America, EU, and UK, are doing efforts towards implementing gender balance policies at workplace. Okay, besides that, it also indicates that we need to perhaps do more outreach and more engagement efforts in other countries where these efforts are less. So that means in the other European countries, in Africa, in Oceania, Asia, Middle East, we have to make more efforts over there. Right. Then coming further, if we look at the number of non-permanent researchers, then we can see that most of this gender balance efforts are being carried out. The nominees are actually in the age group of 35 to 45. So 25% nominees are in that age group, and they are the one who are really engaging a lot in these kind of gender balance awareness activities or training or all sorts of policy related activities that they can do. But at this stage, they are usually junior researchers. So they are mostly into training, networking, mentoring, these kind of activities, followed by the age group of 30 to 35. So these are postdoc level and junior researcher level nominees. So this is their career level. When you come to senior researcher level, we have the percentage of 6%. So senior researchers and researchers who are at professor level, 6%. So the number is going down. So that means mostly, so they are all non-permanent researchers to start with. But among these non-permanent researchers, most of the activities to build gender balance gap is being done within the age group of 30 to 45. When we go further, this is the graph for permanent researchers, the pie chart for permanent researchers. And what we see over here is that we have most of the efforts to build gender balance at workplace is being done by researchers in the age group of 40 to 45, followed by 35 to 40 age group. And then it remains, it decreases, but it remains constant, which is 10%. And that is the efforts being done by senior researchers and professors or directors of the institute. And then it's the retirement age where it's almost 6%. And then after retirement age, actually, beyond 65, there are still some people who are active and who are engaging into establishing gender balance at workplace or doing efforts to bring to build more equal workplace. So these findings are important. What they show us is that inclusive policies are needed. You need to provide support and resources to these researchers so that they are the one who are actually playing a very important role at this stage, and so that their careers could be supported and they could help to build gender balance and diversity at workplace. So I'll just stop here because we have another participant who wants to join. Yeah, right. So, so we understand that we need to have gender balance champions, and this is what is going to help a bit to build this gap. And of course, we need to have inclusive policies. And the policies, actually, they stand on these three important pillars in research and in higher academics, and that's funding agencies, universities, and peer-reviewed journals. So who is feeding them all this information? Who is actually playing an important role in hiring and in trying to build this leaky pipeline effect, or how do you say, to repair the leaky pipeline effect? It is all those evaluators and researchers who are in the hiring committee, who are the ones who study the files, who are the ones who actually interview people or evaluate research projects or referee papers which are submitted. And they are the one who feed these pillars, and gender balance is not achieved and leaky pipeline is still there. So what do we need then? We need some kind of methods to really look into the gender analysis when we are doing all this hiring. And I mean, in our policies, we need to include all these new analysis methods to see if we are maintaining the gender balance when we are evaluating files or proposals or looking at publications and rejecting or accepting the publications. Because I mean, it happens very commonly nowadays that you submit a publication in one journal, it gets rejected there, and you submit it in the second journal and it gets accepted there. So what happens here? Why one referee could not accept it and the other one could accept it? So there are problems. Okay, so we need to have more better policies, more inclusive policies. So of course, then grant agencies have to look into gender balance issues. When they are giving funds, they have to make sure that the proposal also has some way of maintaining gender balance. I mean, this should be one of the criteria, one of their action plans, which is not always the case. But some journals are, some grant agencies are doing it, but not all grant agencies are doing it. Same is the case for journals. I mean, when we are submitting publications and when we are publishing, we have to make sure that there is some amount of gender balance being maintained among the male and the female candidates who are submitting, or researchers who are submitting their work for publications. If female researchers' publications are not being accepted and rejected systematically, then that means there is some problem with the referee work over here. Same is the case at university level. One has to hire more women if we want to fill the gender gap, which is there. Leaky pipeline is there, and so this is not yet solved. So this has to be implemented in some way or the other. Women are holding non-permanent positions for 50 years, 60 years, and that's not normal, right? So these are the problems. So if there are no efforts to hire women at permanent positions, then it's very difficult to encourage young women to take up research career, because these are the questions that women candidates, a few young girls who are asking us at college level and at university level, that if we are not having enough professors who are women, or if we are not having enough funds for women, then why should we get into this long education path and have delayed career and delayed pension and small salaries and still invest so much? So we have to answer them. And at this stage, I think I am not having a very clear answer of what to tell them, besides telling them science is good and you should follow your passion and you should share your passion with the world. And gender imbalance gives rise to unhealthy and unsafe working conditions. This is very clear. We see it, it's happening, and it's not something which is just in ideas or in talks. It's happening, it's there. And it's unsafe, and somehow it's not being controlled. This is a very big problem. And then there are issues of harassment, bullying, mental health problems in institutions are growing, and communication is getting in a more deteriorated stage. So this is something which we have to keep a track of and try to improve. And finally, how to tackle high competition and conflict of interest. So there are various solutions to have feedback mechanism, inclusive evaluation policies, gender balance at workplace, leaky pipeline in effect has to be solved, diversity and inclusive policies, and monitoring the progress. And that's my last slide. With that, I will stop. And that is basically the solutions that one could have to solve these issues. So thank you very much for your attention. But that's the background I gave you, because you can see here that there is an imbalance existing, and gender balance champions are trying to help here to improve this imbalance which is there, or this gender gap which is there. So thank you very much for your attention. And with this, we will go to our next speaker of the session, and that's Professor Cosimo Inserra. And it is very interesting to have him, because he is actually leading the equality and diversity unit in his university, right? And he is also a member of the European Astronomical Society EDI Working Group. So I'm very happy to welcome Cosimo. Please take over from here.
Thank you very much, Mamta. Thank you very much for the promotion. I am not yet a professor, or at least not from my UK perspective. Thanks, everyone. And I also want to thank again Mamta to actually have, with this invitation, I actually realized I had some unconscious bias towards myself, and I did question for a long time if it was okay for a male to speak in such a day about women. And I said that's I said to myself that allyship is a very important part of this entire balancing and gender balancing, and try to be equitable and equity. So I'll share now my presentation. Just let me know if I'm can you see it? The proper slide rather than the presenting slide. Okay, good. Okay, so I will focus on a journey more centralized to the UK, which is where I live and where I work, and that was where I'm more expert of understanding of gender inequality in terms of balancing the overall scenario. But before going into the specific, into the progresses that we had in the UK in terms of gender balance, and especially with two big projects, which are the Athena's 1 and the Juno project, which are two gender balance. They both they were born as gender balance initiatives in the UK. I want to do a little bit of historical roots to how we ended up to here from the beginnings. And I think consider today is good to remember three of the pioneer women in astronomy. Caroline Herschel, that was the sister of William Herschel, that discovered several comets, and he was also the first woman awarded the gold medal for the Royal Astronomical Societies in the 1700s. If we move to 100 to a century, we also moved from the UK to the US with Annie Jump Cannon. Annie Jump Cannon was actually the pioneering of the stellar classification, and what at that time it was known as the Harvard classification scheme, which is basically a prototypical version of our more known Esperance-Russell diagram, for as they also did check stellar evolution between luminosity and temperature. And we then moved to the closest one in terms of time, which the 1900s with Henrietta Swan Leavitt, also a US astronomer, for which we know that's the original prototypical Cepheid relation, the luminosity distance relation is given to Henrietta Leavitt, and that was actually the beginning of cosmology as a science. So a lot of times people do not know, especially my students do not remember that there are these very important figures. They're not, you don't need actually to go to nowadays to see them, but they were like even hundreds of years ago. There were less, but they were still by any means pioneering in both research and what it means being a researcher coming from a gender minority in what it has been and is in some area the prototypical environment for the white male, and still is, which is academia, unfortunately. And in the UK, in this century, there's been two important moments that became also laws. And the first one was the Equal Pay Act of the 70s, for which the UK government established that prohibiting employers basically prohibiting employers from discriminating in terms of pay or pay between gender, it was going to be unlawful, and so they could be persecuted by law into court. Saying that, you will see from the data that there is still a pay gender gap, but this is just due to the still inheritance of this concept, and then giving to women different roles than men, rather than the same one for which they have to provide the gender gap, so the same pay. The other one, which is even more important because it's more actual and is also broader in terms of information, is the Equality Act of 2010 that protects seven characteristics. And of these 7 characteristics, including gender, ethnicity, race, and disability, and others, it focuses on that everything, not only the pay, but the recruitment, promotion, training opportunities has to be equal for everyone, and especially these 7 protected characteristics. Otherwise, any employer can be again brought to court by anyone identified or self-identified with any of these protected characteristics. So when there start to be laws protecting that, these usually decreases. It doesn't not get to 0, but it dramatically decreases, because it makes harder for the voluntary or the involuntary perpetrators to actually forcing some minorities to a worse position. Nowadays, especially from 2005, in the UK, there's been a lot of moving try to address gender equality, especially in academia, that, as I said before, is for worse, has been for a long time the beacon of the white male territory. One of those, possibly the most famous of all, is Athena Swan, where Swan stands for Scientific Women Academic Network, and it was born in 2005. We are now at the third re-establishment of the Athena Swan in terms of slightly changing how the Athena Swan framework works and operate. But basically nowadays, this is a framework to understand and test every single academic environment in the UK. It started in the STEM, but now is enlarging to also the humanities and the life science. So basically nowadays, almost every single university in the UK and every single department and school has submitted one of these applications to achieve a status in the society in terms of what is their advancement in gender equality, and now embracing more race equality and so on. Athena Swan works in 3 levels. There is a bronze, a silver, and a gold. None of the gold, it doesn't mean perfection. It means that they've done a lot and they're trying to be a beacon for the rest of the society. But it is very important and understood there is no unend goal. You will always need some change, some evolution, so a positive change to address minorities, to address issues they can raise by fixing something else. If we look at the astronomy departments in the UK, 26 astronomy departments have an Athena's One badge. Of these, 20 have silver and 6 have a bronze. It basically means that all of them have started their journey into gender equality, into addressing that, try to understand what are the issues, how they can be fixed, and who can be fixed these kind of issues. It's an iterative process. It takes 5 years roughly from getting from an application to another one, and it forces the department and the school or the university to actually create an action plan with proper measurements. Is defined as SMART action plan, and it stands for specific, measurables, achievables, returnable, and time constraints action. So it's very, very specific action, which are not like I will increase that or I will improve that. There has to be proper target with proper solution. How you are going to do that, based on what model, or why do you think this is the right way to do it? Across the Athena's One, there's been also the IUP, the Institute of Physics, that they launched their gender equality charts. And this is important because basically 90% of the astronomy departments in the UK, they're also physics departments. So there is this very deep connection between these two departments. And so this is why I'm presenting both of them. Project Juno was very much similar to Athena's One, a little bit more specific in terms of gender equality because it was only addressing physicists and astronomers, but it ended up having the same kind of impact. So it forced the department to think clearly, to structure an idea how to make the change in the 5 years, at least in a 5 to 8 years time scale. And from the start, as you can see, the timeline of the Juno project is very much alike the one of Athena's One. We now, after 15 years, roughly 15 to 18 years, we have 50% of the physics and astronomy department in the UK have achieved the status of champions, which is the highest one in the IUP. To give you an idea, the champions is reflective to a silver status with Athena's One. Athena's One gold is really much higher in terms of expectation. So AKA, there is a good way now to understand, identify the barriers. Thanks to these two charts and to these applications, it forced all the department to actually actively engage as a whole, not as only the people coming from the minorities to defend the rights of the minorities, but actually taking everyone else accountable for that. There's been a lot of really positive actions and outcomes in the UK between empowering networks, an increased sense of allyship. We now, in a lot of universities, we provide for longer maternity returns. We provide for more full pay time after the maternity and before the maternity, and also keep in touch days, aka it's not because a woman goes into maternity, their main point is to stay with their child. They are also researchers, they're also astronomers. It's not our assumption to say, oh, they have to stay with the child. It's not. It's like we're going to provide them with the opportunities to stay in touch, stay a research leader at their own terms, at their own time. It's not, okay, see you in 9 months, and I hope that we are going to be the same as you when you left us. That's not acceptable anymore. We also have specific PhD scholarship to support an increased amount of scholarship to a minority. That's also not so in terms of gender, but in ethnicity. And we are now trying to be even more in terms of equality, also to approach students with disability as well. So these are one of the examples. I think Mamta before made a fantastic examples about the Grand Council. So how does the university trying to do that with different success and different timescales? Is a long process because we inherited this kind of culture, and especially I think for a lot of things in the UK, we are quite progressive, although it doesn't seem that much from an UK perspective, but then I have to reflect with all the other European or even non-European and pan-European realities, and they're far in worse shape than the UK itself. But how these reflects in terms of the council grants and so on. So if we get to the STFC, which is Science, Technology and Facility Council, which is the main UK Grand Council for astronomy, just astronomy, not physics, astronomy, we get this is the report of last year, 2023, so the latest results. The principal investigators, so these are permanent staff, were 30% of the entire workforce that could apply for grants in the UK. And the success rate of female, it was 50%. It was basically, it was even higher than the one of male. If you see, it's 51 to 48 and 50 to 53. That is for the total investigators. So the PI was the leader of the program itself. The ratio between the leaders and being a co-I was the same. Actually, we had like almost 31% for leadership and 28% for co-I-ship. This also is on the same point of the gender pay gap reports in astronomy and in academia. That was reported again from STFC now 6 years ago. Also was reported to the government, and here you can actually see the difference between the male and the female pays. So the overall median and overall mean is that what society in terms of public data you can actually see per same grades, aka same identical post with the same name and the same money. If you see, there is at the lowest, which are the A to the G are the one with higher salary, and then there is the senior one. So it's said to be, when you go to the seniors, the male, it gets a little bit higher, but it's still below the average population. But when you go to senior, actually female have higher salaries than men. When I saw that, I thought, oh, wow. I didn't really expect that by society, but possibly just because they're few, possibly because they're at the beginning women that are already in senior position nowadays. They did all their experience 20, 30 years ago, where there was completely different setup. So it's possible there's going to be an historical way of why this is different. It could be interesting to see this in 4 years from now in terms of the 10-year scale. However, the results of, if you look at the TINAS 1 and if you look at the Juno IOP, the fact is that in the last 10 years, the female professors, so full professors or professorial chair, aka senior roles, have increased of almost a factor of 3 in the UK. Female staff, so all the other permanent staff, has risen up to an average of 20% in all the universities in astronomy. Some of those are higher, some of those are lower. The increase of more female students as undergraduates, not as PhD, because in a lot of universities as a PhD, they achieve parity. So it's 50-50. It's the same figure that Mamta showed before. But what is actually now is empowering all these structures as empowered the people is now we are forced to get this kind of data. We need to see this data, and that's like having this data. You could go and show to the school, to the department, to the council, look, this is wrong. The data is clearly showing it is wrong. So he trained us to collect the right set of data to understand as a consequence where the barrier is, because we have to always remember we are scientists. We thrive in the data, and as we are very good at analyzing what's going to be wrong, and force us also to understand how can we change it. So to have these kind of very smart, very specifically measurable and time-constrained action for which we're going to be accountable for. Because in 5-year scale, all of these charities are going to say, what are the progress with respect to your action plan that you published 5 years ago? For example, in Cardiff, our action plan is public, available to everyone else. So we make ourselves very accountable and what we're going to do, what we want to do in our 5 years time scales. Nevertheless, we are getting better, but this is still a very long road. If you think that nowadays, from some results from the Royal Astronomical Society survey in 2021, 20% of the staff is bullied and harassed, and that is actually 25%. That's data from the National Office for Statistics, official National Statistics Department in the UK. And actually, the Royal Astronomical Society's point is on a survey of 650 people that is up to the 44%. Women and non-binary are people are more like to be bullied by 50% than any other protected characteristics. 50% of LGBTQ plus astronomers were bullied in the years before this surveys. And if you think overall on numbers, everybody is eligible to be to work in the UK from the age of 18 to 66. If you take the population, is 50% of the UK population are women, but we still have 20% in astronomy, and overall in a lot of other areas of academia is even lower. If you take a single university, it goes usually around 30 to 35% because it's rebalanced by the humanities that have overall the parities, or there's some section where actually the males are the minority. So future direction is the last slide. So we move from last 20 years, I would say, is the reality. If you take the famous, if you imagine the famous picture of the three people with the boxes, reality is when there is only one person, you can watch the baseball game. So clearly it was a US perspective of the sign, because I've never seen a baseball game for more than 5 minutes before getting bored. Then you move to change one box each to each one, but there is still one is not able to see it, and that is equality. And then you move to equity, where you go like, okay, the tallest person, you don't need boxes, you can still watch it. There is the medium height person with one, and the lowest person with two. And then there is what is defined as a liberation. Just remove the barrier that is impeding you to watch. Everybody can watch at their own time, at their own desire, with what is their characteristic, without any additional help. Where we are right now, I think we are in the quality range. Some area they're still a little bit behind in the reality. Some they're moving towards equity. But the good things is that if you go to the main council in the UK, which is all the main council for everything, so not all the astronomy, is called UK R&I, Research and Innovation, is the overarching council for mine in the UK. They now ask for AD&I data and forms for all the grants application. They also specify that there has to be mandatory AD&I training or AD&I actions for all bigger grants, where there are like, especially when there is students that are involved, like Center for Doctoral Training. Diversity in STEM is part of the government's roadmap and has been for now decades. And one of the framework where we're in the UK that is related to academia is called Research Excellence Framework, and it goes with cycle of 7 years. Now 25% of the mark that the university is going to get, regardless it is Oxford or Cambridge, or is the last one of the most famous universities in the UK, will have to be assessed in this, and 25% will also have, as a request, as a point of starting point, not a rival point, as a starting point, AD&I has to be fully embedded in their research culture. So there is a lot of changing towards the better, not only from the academia, but also from academia to society and from grants to academia. And that's all. I'll leave with you the last slide. This is one of our projects for role models for physicists, because of physics and astronomy, but several of them are astronomers in the words. If you don't recognize some of them, just let me know. I can tell you who they are. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Cosimo. I think that was very interesting, and that's exactly what we want to see, the policies and the data. I just have one question before we go to the audience, and that's, what are the policies being implemented by the government on mega projects? So it's not about students and people who want to get jobs in astronomy and what EDI activities they are doing, but it's about the mega projects which get lots of grants. Are they forced to have some kind of gender balance plan in their roadmap, or no?
They cannot have, I think, as of now, a gender balance. In terms, they cannot be forced to go 50-50.
But what measures? What
But
measures?
there are some goals that they will have to actually usually nowadays is requested for these big grants to have a balance between race, gender, and sexual orientation. And because it's been recognized that diversity is the power to advancement in science. So all of those, they need a very detailed plan how they're going to gauge. They cannot say, oh, we are going to try to achieve these at the best of our opportunities. That's not okay. They will not fly in this case. There has to be like, okay, where do you want to do? What are the programs? So are you going to create programs in the school so you can get the new generation? You are going to achieve from different socioeconomic area or different even countries where there is more of these protected characteristics. And in the UK, there are also two, actually, the councils also created two different, the first one is the UK RAI has created a 5 million grant 2 years ago, which now it goes by the AD&I caucus to actually devise about policies and to empower the academia to actually grow in their AD&I understanding. And EPSRC, which is one of the sub-council for UKRI, is the main council for physics, chemistry, and engineering with a little bit of computer science. Also create another of these, is in the verge of creating another of these AD&I center, which is a 2 million of strategies and policies that are going to be implemented to the users, to the grant holder, and to the people that are going to write the new grants. And they should be active by the end of 2024 in principle.
Okay, great.
We are going there slowly, but surprisingly steadily.
Yes. Any questions for Cosimo? Okay. So I don't see any questions, but if you have any question, then please type it in the chat box and he's going to be with us.
If you find there are not that many Cosimo and Sarah in Cardiff, so just email me if you have any questions. I would be more than happy to reply.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Cosimo, very much for this interesting talk. Let's move on to the next speaker. And next speaker is Dr. Michelle Lochner. She is the founder and director of Supernova Foundation Mentoring Program. So we thought of inviting her because she has been doing a lot of work while she was not even a permanent, having a permanent position. And that is very important because she has been investing a lot of her time in doing these kind of work or mentoring work, which is not really more publication related work. So we want to hear a bit about her and why did she start, or why did she start this foundation, and what was her reason to go ahead with this whole program. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Michelle, and please go ahead with your talk.
Thanks so much, Mamta. Let me share my screen. That's great. Okay, just move this out the way. Thanks so much again for the invitation. Sorry, I was a bit late. I was at a different event and thought I wasn't going to make it, but actually it's all worked out fine. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Michelle Lochner. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of the Western Cape, and I also have a joint staff scientist position with the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. So I am a South African. I'm obviously not going to talk much about my research, but I thought I should just mention that my interests are in machine learning applications to big astronomical data sets. I'm excited about the SKA, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, etc. But I'm not here to talk about science. I'm here to talk about scientists, as we all are. As Mamta said, I'm the founder and director of the Supernova Foundation, which we've been running for quite a few years. So I'm going to tell you all about it and tell you a little bit about some of the lessons learned from it, as hopefully, good discussion points. Sorry, I just want to get out of the way. Okay, so I think this is the wrong audience to try to motivate this for, but I think we're all pretty convinced that there's a problem with the gender gap. And we've heard today about some, there are many different ways that we can attack this problem and ways that we have to attack this problem. We have to come at it very holistically. I showed this plot, which is now quite old, and I'm sure there's much newer ones. available, but we have this leaky pipeline issue, and this is seen in most countries around the world, where you have quite a few women engaging in BSc programs, etc., but slowly dropping out as you get more and more and more senior. So what we wanted to try to do is to do what we could to try to retain women. I mean, we can't solve all of the problems, but we can maybe try to remove some of the barriers through a very supportive mentoring program. So is mentoring even a good idea for trying to resolve these issues? So I came across a couple of interesting studies, and I'll send these slides if people want to click on the links and have a look. But one of my favorite ones was a small study done in engineering, and it was actually senior engineering students, postgraduate students mentoring junior students, and they looked at whether there was an impact. First of all, does mentoring help with this problem, and the impact of specifically having women role models for the women students. And they did find quite a big impact, especially qualitatively, but also in just helping retain students in the programs. And the way that the authors described it is that having these role models acts as like a kind of vaccine against typical feelings of isolation and the microaggressions and things that women might face when they are, and I think this is really quite general for anyone who is a minority within a group. These kinds of feelings tend to arise, and being exposed to role models can just help persevere through these kinds of feelings. So it's seen as like a vaccine against it. And there was also a UNESCO study which looked at multiple different options for dealing with gender inequality. Mentoring was considered to be something that could be part of the solution. And consistently, I think this is probably a very common experience, mentoring of any kind is really helpful with your career and helpful in helping stay motivated to pursue this career. But I think having these role models who are similar to you in this particular way is particularly supportive. Okay, so where did we come from? As Mamta said, I was actually still a postdoc when we started working on this. So when I was a PhD student, I was supervised by a guy called Bruce Bassett, who's a South African, and he was very involved. It's actually a bit of a weird start that we had, but he was very involved in Mauritius for whatever reason, and growing the community of astronomers in Mauritius and trying to encourage students to come to South Africa to study. And he said that it was really difficult to convince the young women to come over. And most of the reasons were cultural and influences from their family. This view of, no, you're a woman, you're not supposed to leave home, you're supposed to stay home and find a husband. So he thought, he had this brilliant idea of starting some kind of virtual mentoring program. And he asked me to run it. By then I had left, I was at UCL in London. I was a postdoc, but we got together a group of women astronomers. There were only, I think, 6 of us at the time. And we had also a small group of students. We did manage to convince, well, not convince, but support one of the students in coming over to South Africa to study. But after a couple of years, I realized that this program had much broader potential. The idea of virtual mentoring was a genius one because it breaks down so many geographical barriers. It doesn't need any funding. All it needs is people who are willing to help and willing to just give up a little bit of their time to support women all over the world. So we shut down the Mauritian mentoring program and we started the Supernova Foundation in 2017. And that was just after I had started my first soft money, semi-permanent position. So it really was quite early on in the career. So just some faces of some of our wonderful mentors and the website that, of course, I encourage you to have a look at. But let's look a little bit more about the program itself. We're truly global. Whenever we have a Slack team, and whenever I put @channel, Slack warns me I'm about to notify people in 19 different time zones, which is really quite remarkable. So here's a map of where the mentors are, where it's darker is where there's more mentors. So obviously we've got quite a lot from South Africa because I strong arm most of my colleagues into joining. But we have lots of mentors from North America, Europe, India, and quite a strong contingent in South America. And there you can see kind of the breakdown of countries. It's really pretty even all over the globe. What's interesting is the difference in the mentee distribution, where we have a much stronger representation from some of the developing countries. We have an enormous contingent from India. So somehow the word just got around from India. We're very popular there. We've got lots of Indian mentees. Very difficult to penetrate throughout Africa. And so this is one of my major targets going forward, because you know, as Cosimo said, in many countries, many of the developing countries around the world have it even worse. We had one of our mentees saying she was the first woman in her whole country to get a PhD in astronomy. So they're very unlikely to have access to women role models. And so they can benefit the most from these kind of programs. So I think penetration throughout Africa is very important to us, but we really are very global in our mentees as well. And here you can see the breakdown, again, that massive contingent from India, lots of students from South Africa, but really all over the world as well. Okay, so a little bit more about the Supernova Foundation itself. Over the years, we've reached something like 600 people, but of course, people come and go, people leave academia, they decide this thing is not really for them, especially the mentees drop in and out quite a bit. So at the moment, we've got just over 300 active members, many more mentees than mentors, which is pretty understandable given that our mentees are students. So these are undergraduate or postgraduate students. Mentors are postdoc and above, and you're always going to have an imbalance between them. So that's been one of our issues, is the lack of mentors, and something that we're busy working actively to address. And so what do the mentors and mentees actually do? Well, when a mentor joins the Supernova Foundation, she will look at the pool of available mentees, and we have various ways to help filter based on time zone being the most important, because you have to set up these mentoring sessions at a time that works for you both. But also, you know, they have profiles that they can read through. There are interests. It's obviously great to align your interests because then you know the field, but it's not really necessary. I've mentored a theoretical physicist just fine, and she's doing really well. And so what happens is the mentor and mentee will meet regularly for monthly private mentoring sessions. And usually we encourage each mentor to have 2 mentees. It's not always possible. Sometimes they just don't have the capacity. What we also have built is this thriving network. So we have these webinars, and sometimes the webinars are on fairly generic topics like writing CVs or grant proposals, just generally useful career advice. We had a great networking webinar a little while ago. But sometimes they can be a little bit more sensitive topics. So we'll talk about mental health, work-life balance, and some of the challenges specifically faced by women in the field. And there it's really helpful to have a very broad range of mentors who can share their experiences and their opinions. And I think it's really great for the students to have access to such a broad range of experiences and opinions. And we also, our mentees actively participate in the webinars as well. We don't have a very strong kind of division between them. And they often contribute in other ways, like helping other mentees with applications to certain parts of the world. Like one mentee wrote a whole long thing about how to apply for PhDs in the US. So the general career support and networking has been very, very powerful there. And as I mentioned, we have a Slack team, which is where a lot of the kind of communication happens. So it's open to women, but also gender minorities. So we've had one transgender mentor, non-binary people, etc. But it's predominantly been women. It's open to all areas of physics, but because of the kind of initial bias of the original seed of mentors, we're very predominantly astronomy. It's definitely the most well-represented field. Okay, so I don't actually have any beautiful data to show you. I was very jealous of Cosimo and all of the data. This is something that I would like to start collecting more data. We do have some amount of feedback we've been getting from mentors and mentees, but it's very difficult to say, you know, is this working? Are we managing to retain people? Certainly, we're starting to see many of our mentees become mentors themselves, which is an incredibly gratifying experience. My own mentee has been with me since the beginning, and she's now just about to start her first fellowship and become a mentee herself. So we certainly have plenty that we have retained within the Supernova Foundation, but then others have left as well. So it's difficult to quantitatively know how much of an impact the program is having, but I can give you some qualitative data and some words from our mentors and mentees. So I will start with just talking about kind of lessons learned, because many people are looking into mentoring as a way to support not just women in astronomy, but other minority groups. And I think the Supernova Foundation model could be really useful and really powerful for many other communities. I think having this online community, I always joke that we started doing it before it was cool. So before the pandemic hit, we were doing everything online already. I think it can be really, really powerful because it's very easy to be isolated. I know when I was an undergraduate, I was the only woman in my physics class. I was the only woman for a long time in the first group that I joined as faculty. I'm still only one of two women in the physics department's faculty. So it can be very isolating. So if you have this online community, you can bridge that geographical barrier, and so really definitely helps people to feel a lot less isolated and have access to these amazing role models. We get everyone together in a webinar, and it's just incredible to see so many women who have these spectacular careers, and it's really an inspiration to the students. So I think these online communities can really help bridge those gaps. This program, for a long time, it was just me doing everything. And we're now starting to build a leadership committee, which I'll talk about in a second. But it was really important to build a program that can scale up really easily and not require so much intervention. So we rely entirely on mentors and mentees, essentially self-organizing and just keeping track of them with feedback. And I think that's actually really helped because sometimes you just need to give people the opportunity to make a connection, and they'll do the rest themselves. But it is important to provide training and support. So we do have some minimal training. We want to introduce more training, but expectations are really critical. Students need to understand that mentoring is not like someone helping them with their homework or helping them with their project. Your mentor is not your supervisor. They're there to support you, perhaps to give some career advice, but really to just be there as a role model, as you navigate through your career. And everyone needs mentoring at some point. I mean, when I became faculty, suddenly everyone's like, oh, well, you must know what you're doing now, right? And that was when I felt like I knew the least at any point in my career. So I think at every level, mentoring is very powerful. Peer mentoring is incredibly valuable. So this is something, and this is something I've felt as part of the Supernova Foundation. Some of the other mentors who've been around for a long time, we have kind of this little group that supports each other when there's, when one of us faces a harassment issue or microaggressions or things. It really is helpful. We've spent a long time now, the past year or two, developing a very lengthy constitution and try to become more professional so that we can grow. We now have a leadership committee, which we just voted in last year. So I've got a lot more support now, people in charge of running the webinars, the most wonderfully active social media team. It's really great to see everything they're doing. People managing our digital platforms, etc. So we're starting to put structures in place to allow us to grow and expand almost indefinitely. And I'll just finish off with some quotes from some of our members. I don't want to necessarily go through all of them. I'd rather have a little bit more time for discussion if we can. But I really wanted to highlight this one because I think this is so important. So Gazel Gashnijani, she's at the University of Waterloo. I call her my right-hand woman. She's been there from the beginning. She's the deputy director. I don't know what I would do without her. And she's extremely active in many initiatives to support women in STEM. And she just had a comment towards institutions that if they're really serious about EDI, they actually should support these initiatives in a meaningful way. And that means, I think she's got another quote on it. maybe later. But that means potentially funding support. That means acknowledging outreach and EDI initiatives as part of your academic portfolio and recognizing it in the same way that research and teaching is being recognized, things like that. Because if all of us are kind of trying to do these things in our spare time and not get the recognition for it or the funding for it, then the whole thing ends up being a non-starter. So yeah, this is what she was saying about recognizing and compensating for the time of volunteers. I just want to skip to this. Okay, so so this is one I also just wanted to highlight. So Elena Pagnetti is one of those ones who's a mentee who transitions to mentor. So she's got a postdoc now, and she's now mentoring her own mentees. And she said one of the things that's really valuable with mentoring is just having access to an external person. And I think this is one of the most powerful aspects of the program is it's someone who's not your supervisor. They're not at your institute. They might not even be in your field. So it makes it really easy to talk to them about whatever situation you're facing. And sometimes, or quite often, they'll have faced the same situation and they can help you, or at least they can brainstorm with some of the ideas. So I think that global aspect of the Supernova Foundation has been incredibly helpful. And also Elena mentioned, and something I want to highlight, that the global nature of it makes it extremely diverse. And so you hear different viewpoints that you might never have heard before. And I think that also really helps in breaking down barriers. Yeah, and the final kind of piece of advice that I always give to the mentees, and something to think about with the mentoring program, is that we're not here to tell anyone what to do. So we're here to be supportive, to give advice, but at the end, the mentees all have to choose their own path and find their own way forward. So I'm going to stop there just to allow any, and I'll leave it on the beautiful social media slide. So our social media team is so great. I'm going to stop there and take any questions. Thank you so much again for inviting me.
Thank you, Michelle. That was great. And I think you people are doing a lot of work because you're mentoring since so many years now.
Yeah.
And that is great that you have maintained this whole thing going on, whereas I think at one point one may give up. So I just have one question for you before we go to the audience, and that's what are the typical problems that these students are facing? Is there any common problem all over the world? Is there something which is kind of a repetitive problem which they come across?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and something I would also definitely love to gather a bit more data on. But I can tell you from my own mentoring experiences and from the things that come up at the webinars, I think there are a few common threads. One of the most common issues is just confidence. I think a lot of, you especially see this from students from the developing countries, and especially if they're in departments where they're very much a minority. So often like more towards the theoretical physics end where women are even scarcer. There are these typical confidence issues, you hear of imposter syndrome coming up, just general self-belief. I feel like half the time as a mentor, I'm just trying to build up my mentees' confidence. And in fact, that extends to my experience as a supervisor, right? You're often trying to just build up their confidence. So I think that is a theme that comes up a lot. Another theme that's a big issue is family expectations. This is also more common in certain countries than others. So for instance, some of our mentees from some countries in Europe won't have these issues at all, but it's extremely problematic in India, in Mauritius, in many African countries, in many South American countries, where young women they're expected to find a husband and start a family and stay home, and they can't go gallivanting around the world to get a PhD and a postdoc and or whatever. And they are constantly having to fight their own family, in a sense, in order to have these kinds of career opportunities. And I think that's also where mentors play a big role. Obviously, we can't intervene and say, oh no, screw your parents or whatever, but we can try to advise on how they can handle the situation and how they can try to raise awareness within their family, and just generally be supportive, because a lot of the time they just decide, you know, I want this career, I want to go for it, I'm going to go for it, whatever my family says. And then we're just really there to try and be supportive. So I think those are the two that come to mind that are pretty common across many of our mentees.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Heidi.
Yeah, so Michelle, congratulations, it's an amazing program and really like it. And I think this is very important. You show a map for the supernova worked in 51 different countries. So my question is about how do you work to break languages barriers? Because the problem with the developed country is normally young people or students in schools not speaking English. So how do you work about this? What is the program about this working parity?
The languages are always tricky. So what we do have is on the profiles, you can list what languages you speak. So, you know, you might say my first language is Spanish, but I also speak English and whatever. And so that's one of the kind of parameters that you can match up between mentors and mentees. So we've had a lot of success in South America, for instance, where we've actually got quite a few mentors and quite a few mentees. So that really helps. So there'll be mentees that, for instance, only speak Spanish or Portuguese, but they're okay to find a mentor who is able to speak their language. I think that is actually one of the helpful things with the program, is that because it is so global, we can make those matches. You know, for instance, many African countries, the predominant language will be French, or they will at least be able to speak French. So our French mentors can help out. But there is some element of, if your mentor doesn't speak your language and there's no common language between you, communication is obviously going to be really difficult. So yeah, that's kind of the best effort thing that we can do, is try to match mentors and mentees who have common languages so that communication is easier.
Okay, yes, thank you. Any further questions for Michelle?
I have a question, Yolanta, to this map. What colors means here? So
sure. Yeah, there's no color bar on here because I grabbed it from the website. The darker blue just means more mentors there, you know, and it goes towards light green where there's less mentors. So it's just to kind of see where is the highest density of our members. So you can see most mentors are from the North America, from Europe, and from South Africa. And the situation is very different for the mentees. And the actual breakdowns of numbers are in these pie charts, although these are a bit outdated by now. But yeah, that's what they mean.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Michelle, for your time and for this talk.
Thanks, everyone.
For your efforts that you're doing since so many years. Right. We'll go ahead with the next talk, with the next speaker. And next speaker is Heidi Quitian Lara, and she is a postdoc at University of Kent. But we thought of inviting her because she is young and still having her postdoc phase going on, but she is actively involved in various nonprofit organizations across Latin America, Colombia, where she's promoting and focusing on women career and research. And she's doing a lot of mentoring activities. So we would really like to hear from her what she's doing and why did she decide to get into it to start with. So Heidi, please take over.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Is okay?
Yes.
Entering the correct screen. Yeah, okay, great. So I need this pointing. Okay, yes. So thank you for me it's a pleasure to be here and for commemorating the International Women's Day and talking about the importance of the equality opportunities. But I'm from Colombia, so as a Latin American woman, so I want to talk about the impact of astronomy and in some of education and outreach program in Latin America. Before we start, we need talking about briefly about the historical context in astronomy in Latin America. So this is the map, and pre-Columbian civilization was very important about in astronomy and connection for the cosmovision. For example, all O's connected with the Aztecs calendar, and this community developed a great civilization and details methods about the measure of time, Maya relation for the connection to spiritual or astronomy, and now the knowledge about the sky. And Inca civilization, this is a picture about the maybe observatory, pre-Columbian observatory in Peru. And the astronomy was very important for this civilization because it's very important for the agriculture. So this is one example for the heritage astronomy in Latin America. In the present, or most recently, we need to talk about the new map. Latin America divided in different countries. The dominant languages is Spanish. Some countries speak English or Guyana or French or Portuguese in Brazil, but the communication really is in Spanish languages. So recently, or relatively recently, still construction of the observatory, the oldest observatory is from Colombia. And in the beginning of the 19th century, the next was in Brazil. And now we know the cutting-edge telescope in Latin America, for example, the large millimeter telescope in Mexico, and obviously ALMA. The problem is the connection of this telescope or these facilities not have access for the Latin American people. The community worked about these instruments is from foreign institutions, Europe, United States, but the local community is poor for the access for these is local. And what is the problem? In the case of Colombia, we have 13 different universities offering a bachelor's degree in physics, but only one university offers degree in astronomy, and this area opened in 2009, so it's relatively recently. And the first astronomy, the man astronomy, was graduated in 2014, and the first Colombian female astronomy was graduated in 2016. The second problem for the enroll in astronomy or the STEAM careers in Latin America is the socioeconomic status and political conflicts. Again, in the case of Colombia, we show this map. This is the distribution of the rental levels of the different countries reported for the inequality of the society. So we live it in Colombia with a day payments between $2 or $12, and this is very long. So we have problems with the pay, education, house, food, and all for our families. So we need choice, and what is the best decision for our future. The second problem is the conflict areas. This is very sad for me because Colombia had very problems in the past, obviously before the signature of the peace in 2019, but now in the present we have many problems for the different groups, different attacks in the rural and urban communities, and this stopped the enroller for the different students into the careers STEM. So we need a create and really believe that the many young people in Colombia and in Latin America have a passion for the science and astronomy, and this is a gateway for the connected with the STEAM careers. And in this case, the STEAM, we use the STEAM include arts because arts is a very good tool for peace. Our topics for work in equality in Latin America involved women empowerment in programs, mentoring for schools and students, orientation in STEAM program, and science outreach for children and adults. The idea of all of this program is use the local languages, Spanish, or connected for mentors that speak Spanish or use accessory for the other mentors for the best communication. These programs are, or might participate, or I enroll in different programs. One example of this is the Network for Colombian Astronomy Students, is RECA. The idea of this group, of this network, is joint different academics and students around astronomy and connected with the students with professionals in astronomy. Others is Colombian women doing astroscience research. This group is CHIA. The foundation is for the group of the women astronomers. The other groups is woman scientists or Mujer Científica. This group is talking about the different science, but the focus in women participation, the increase the visibility of the women in careers or STEAM. And CHIA's foundation, that this is most special networking or foundation for all of this. So starting for RECA. So RECA is a network that wants to connect Colombian astronomer students and professionals in astrophysics or other areas. For example, in my case, it's astrochemistry. RECA is projected as a main network Colombian students and professionals in astronomical and space science with a national and international recognition. So we are around the 231 members and distributed in different high education levels, and we live in different countries, but the most part is into Colombia. The idea of this network is connected and created the connection directly for the different programs around the astronomy connection. RECA is divided in different nodes, in a total 8 nodes. Each of one have a specific mission. In my case, I participate in education node and an internship node. And in this map, you can see the impact of the different program of RECA in the local communities in Colombia. We have high impacts in the most urban regions in Colombia, but we are really glad about the other communities. For example, this here is poor local, normally involved in very conflictive problems, instability of the political in Colombia, but we have programs in impact in these regions. In the REC education, this program starts in 2021. The education node has connected around the 150 talks in different schools in Colombia. This is the distribution for the different departments in or states in Colombia. And so 150 talks, but the average with talk is around the 30 students. So we have more than 2,500 different students talking about astronomy and the opportunities of the STEAM careers. This is the distribution of the schools in 2023. We had the most part of schools is in the cities, in the urban area, but it's a public school, so normally is the children in this institution are the poor families, located in different environments into the cities. But we have worked in the rural or village outside the cities, and this work is beautiful because we connected directly for a child disconnected for the cities. So normally have problems, but extreme enthusiasm about the science and the knowledge for the sky. The other talks or the other connection they had, the note of RECA education, is the connection for the other institution. In this case, we have working for the University of California in Santa Cruz. This community, not as necessary sponsor, but working in partner with the RECA education node for improve the use of telescope or guides about the use of the different instruments, and only connection for the professionals, foreigners. But normally the languages uses in this case is Spanish. The other node that we enrolled is a RECA Summer Internship Program. In this program is a focus for the bachelor students. The idea of this internship is connected to the university students or bachelor students with project in astronomy. So it's started the first opportunity for a development and research program under the orientation of the professionals. This program is starting in 2021. So we have 3 editions. This year is called Open for the new opportunities for new students. And we have different offer different programs, different projects. And in the first edition, we received 12 projects, more than 60 applications, and this case not funded. But in 2022 and 2023, we have sponsors, so was possible pay for our students for the 10 weeks of work, and it was very significant for our students. This work for the partnership for the ESO and the telescopes in Canarias, and some of these works was published in international journals. And the idea is increase the communication of science in Spanish or English and improve the connection for the research, but in real projects involved astronomy. So this is one example of these projects. This program was in 2023. Where this is an information of planets and street environments. This is from the Max Planck Institute, and this was my program, my project about the astrochemistry or identification of probiotic molecules in a protostar regions. And these works are showed in symposiums online in YouTube. And was very happy about this because some of our students in this moment enrolled in master and PhD. So for me, in my work, I have two projects in 2022 and 2023, and I mentored one student was a single mother for indigenous heritage. So it was amazing. The connection for this the South region from Colombia. The second part of the women works in astronomy is women's science. This work is focused in this force of promote gender equality in science. Women scientists as an organization of students from different areas of science promotes the visibility of Colombian women in science. All coordinate from a students group for the different Colombian universities. Is a very young group. It's started in the last year. So this year is the first convention for or symposium about the women in science. But the group is the members is more than the 1,000 different members. So it's interest is beautiful for the community of the women in science in Colombia. The other group is CHIA. This is a photo of someone's members, and I'm really connected for the different science in different countries, but all from Colombia. It's Colombian women's. And the goal of CHIA is promote the visibility of Colombian astronomers, focus in astronomers and the different areas, but into the astronomy, and participate or mentor with the different groups or events about the gender equality programs. Thanks for CHIA, we have received recognition for the international magazines, in this case Forbes, and increase the visibility of the different Colombian science in astronomy and the different areas. So this is hashtag in Twitter was started in 2021, but until now is famous and is very good in 11 February and 8 of March. So we use of this for promote the visibility of the different women from Latin America. In my work, I create different courses. In this case, is specific for the course of astrochemistry. This course had 27 lectures different, and we have 768 different enrolled students. These students is from Latin America and Spain, because the course is in Spanish. All of these enrolled students, 276, was completion the course, and we have a qualification of the 5 stars. This is amazing because the course is very specific area, but connected for the different topics. In this case, we had a practice into the course for the telescopes, or and a short part for the result for the laboratories, and create enthusiasm for the different communities, engineering and science. Many of these students sent me emails talking about the inspiration about the continue the career of astronomy or science in your lives, in her life. So it was a very good answer for the public. Last time, so the She's Foundation. It was for me is the most special because is foundation is focusing girls in between 9 or 11 until 16 years old. The idea of this program is empowering the girls about the STEAM careers. She is starting in 2019, and the She's Foundation established for the pioneer of the unique Spanish-speaking program in Colombia and Latin America in collaboration for the NASA Space Center in Houston. And this, the main of this mission is the positive impact we leave in the girls, very young girls, in extremely vulnerability and poverty, breaking gender stereotypes and economic barriers. The program focuses for empowering and motivation and inspiration for these young women and for the national models through the STEAM education. In the program, we have a total 4,000 registration and the 500 beneficiaries for the project. This is only the virtual case because the program is divided in two. The in-person program is this, and have the 211 tripulants. The name is tripulants because the idea is feeling into the astronomer or astronaut enroll, and it's a program more than 730 girls have the benefits for the both program, and the program is new, but about the 21 students in start the university, and total financial for the program She's Foundation. So it's good and it's important because these girls living in complicated regions in Colombia and Latin America, because are 6 different countries enrolled in this program. Start in Colombia, but now we have different students in Ecuador, Peru, Costa Rica, and Dominican Republic, and Panama. And now I share a video about the program.
Right. So I'm just sorry to interrupt you, but yes, we can see that. Yeah, I think it's encouraging a lot the young girls. That's great. Yes, taking into account the next speaker, I'm just wondering if we can just go quickly through the video. Heidi.
Thank you. Yes, great. I always cry with this video, but okay. This is one example for the our virtual classes. Normally attended more than 100 different childs. And this is one example of our students. The classes is involved for the different countries. So we have mixed for the Colombian, Peru, Ecuador, all of them in the same class. And finally, this is one example for the publication about the impact on the produce these programs in Latin American girls. So for me, working in this program is very important. Obviously, you know, I have difficult for the communication in English because my family knows access for the course, and the construction of the academy was about the talk about the different programs of the fellowships in Latin America. I started my career for a fellowship in Mexico, after a chain for a fellowship in Brazil. So I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, and now I work here in UK and try to learn English. This is completely difficult for me. The pronunciation is strange, but this force is important, because I believe the connection for the science is a strong connection for peace, it is a strong connection for the new opportunities, and a strong connection for empowering of the women in the different countries. So in summary, outreach and mentoring STEAM programs has benefited thousands of students in multiple countries in Latin America. These programs are also contributing to the promote gender equality and women empowerment in STEAM careers. And finally, education for peace, or education is the key for the opportunity for country social development. So thanks a lot for your time and for your attention.
All right, thank you very much, Heidi. I think you're doing an enormous job, and it's really very good and very inspiring to see all the efforts that you're putting. We will quickly move to the next speaker, but I invite all the participants to please write to Heidi if you have any questions. And I think we can just only appreciate the efforts that she's doing. Thank you. So we'll go over to the next speaker. And the next speaker of this session is Dr. Clementina Sasso from Italy. And she is actually, we invited her because she is doing a lot of work in training teachers. And so we have heard a lot about mentoring students and about all the problems astronomers they face, but she is really working with teachers. So we thought it would be also interesting to hear her point of view, why she chose to work with teachers and training programs for teachers. So we welcome you, Clementina. Please go ahead with your talk.
Thank you. You see my screen, right? Okay, so I will be fast because we are out of time. But so I will present the effort that we have done in the last year, trying to train teachers, school teachers, in all the, all the school grades. So starting from the elementary here in Italy till the high school. And this work was done in collaboration with Silvia Galano. She works at the University of Naples, and she works in education in physics and astronomy. And yeah, you see the people participating, but I will tell you during the talk. So what we have done, we had a training course in gender stereotypes for teachers, and we also managed for the course to be recognized by the Italian Ministry for Education. So teachers received some credits that they can use for their curriculums or for what they need. And we were planning to have 40 teachers to start, but then in the end, the course was really successful because a lot of people wanted to join. So we arrived at 74 teachers and in 32 schools. And yeah, we concentrated for the first time just to test everything in my city. I am from Naples. But then we had also some teachers from Milan in Lombardia that they really wanted to join, so we accepted them. The course was in two parts. The first parts were some lectures that we gave to teachers, inviting professors, experts in that field. Like we spoke a lot about the gender issue in languages, since in Italy, yeah, each language has its own way of addressing genders. But in Italy, we use different vowels to address, I mean, it's different from English, to address to female or male. So in Italy, it can be really an issue how you speak to children in particular for the STEM. Then the gender issue in STEM, so we train the teacher to recognize. So here is the title of the program. So it's to feel the gender stereotypes, to find them, and then to fight them. This is the website that we have, and there it's in Italian, but it's also in English. So from there you can also download the two card games that we developed that the teachers then used in the classrooms with their students. So because other activities were done in laboratory, and with the teachers we developed these two card games, and I will show you them. And one is based on storytelling, so to try to giving light to the story of the women involved in STEM, because their stories are always hidden. And then the other one is also based on storytelling. So, oh, what happened? Okay, how everything started. It happened that I appeared in a national newspaper for my work on, I am a solar physicist, I don't know if I told you. And so there was this newspaper speaking on me, and the American consulate in Naples just contacted me. And because they are really, I think somebody said before that in the US, this program is really, the gender gaps is really, they do a lot of things to overcome this gap. So they proposed me, they candidate me to a program that is called Hidden No More, and it's based on the movie Hidden Figures that I'm sure you all know. So the idea is to put together girls involved somehow in STEMs together for 3 weeks in the US. We were 41 girls and ladies from everywhere in the world. We went to the US for 3 weeks, and then we shared our practice for empowering women in STEM. And this program is called, it's part of the International Visitor Leadership Program that the US Department of State does every year, and for any kind of, this was in STEM, but they do it for everything, actually, for all the fields. So I was in 4 different cities. Here are the project goals of this program. And then they opened a call for all the people participated in this international visitor leadership program, a call, and they were offering $5,000. I mean, to do something, to have, I mean, to finance a project related to our IVLP. So I proposed this training course, and I won this award. It's called IVLP Impact Award. So then I decided that with this money, I would have done this training course. Yeah, we can skip this. So why I decided also with my colleague to go and to boys and girls, so to try to address the problem from the base, because among the factors that contribute to filling the gender gap, there are the gender stereotypes, that they really act implicitly and explicitly on individuals from birth and throughout their life. We know that the gender gap is already really evident in the high school. So if we want more girls choose a scientific high school, here in Italy we have really a big difference between a scientific high school and the other devoted to literature or others, then you have really to work at level of the primary and middle school, because usually when they decide the high school, then it's very difficult that they change and choose a university different from the one from what they choose in the high school. Because then, at least, I mean, these are Italian numbers, then it's true that the girls are less representative in STEM courses at university, but they end university, while usually boys stop their university course. So even if we have less girls that subscribe to the university, then in the end we have a kind of equilibrium at the end of the university, because yeah, let's say it looks like girls are better in this. So I mean, if we are able to address the problem at low school level, usually, yeah, I said it, at elementary, primary, or middle school, then we can really have more girls that choose the scientific faculties. Then we made, just to see how these gender stereotypes are really inside these girls and boys very, very young, they made a small survey. We chose 2 classes, a primary, a 3rd degree, so it was age 7 and 8, and then a 4th degree, so age 8, 9. But the 4th degree class, they had some educational activities on gender stereotypes. So they were kind of prepared. So we were asking who works in scientific fields, and the 3rd class answered like some percentage. M is male, F is female, this T is for all. So they asked kind of for somebody only men, for some others only women, for many of them both. But in the 4th class, when we had some conversation, some educational, I mean, we spoke with them before, then they all converge on everybody can work in scientific field. Who sent the shuttle in orbit? Here, I mean, for the 3rd class, there is no way that a female can send the shuttle into orbit. Here we are going more to the engineeristic part. So, and this is very difficult challenge for a female. So all of them were thinking about men, but then, I mean, if you speak with them, you can overcome this thought that only men can send shuttle in orbit. But when you go to something that is really for them, I mean, like who plays with the doll, you see here. I mean, even if you speak with them, I mean, the majority is always female. So really, boys and girls, actually, they cannot really think of something that is for all of them. So there are still, even if you speak with them, there are still gender stereotypes very difficult to eliminate. The problem is also in the textbooks, because here, yeah, it's in Italian, but you can see here, they had to choose which sport they want to do. And if you see the example that you find in the textbooks, they are, I mean, boys can do everything, almost everything. Girls can only dance. Here is another example. I told you that in Italy, like astrophysicist, if it's a male, then you say astrofisico with the O. If it's a woman, you say with the A at the end. And here, even if there are two girls, two ladies, actually, two women among 5 of them, then you still are calling them with the O. And this is also something that, I mean, it's important to change. Otherwise, girls cannot really see themselves doing these jobs in their future. So gender stereotypes act, we say explicitly and implicitly, and condition the behavior choices and attitudes of the boys and girls. And being aware of the existence of gender stereotypes is the first step to try to change these. And they are not all just about females. And it is very important to say, because we work with boys and girls. So we have also to tell boys that this kind of fight that we are doing for females, it's also for them, because they also have to be free from gender stereotypes and decide what they want to do just by themselves. So talking about this problem at schools means working to guarantee equal opportunities for both boys and girls, and that's nothing to do with their sexual orientation. How can we do this? We actually, in our training course, we address 3 topics. So identify and recognize gender stereotypes, so to find them, recognize how they affect, I mean, how they make students feel, so it's feel, and then carry out educational activities like our training course to fight the gender stereotypes. That can also be favor textbooks that seeks to be inclusive, encourage boys and girls to try different activities than what they think they like. And here we come to the 2 game-based activity that I told you, you can download them. I mean, now it's all, the website is in Italian and English, but you can, but the cards are only in Italian, but in some days we will have also them in English. We had some issues with the website. So the first game is Find GS, so Find Gender Stereotypes. And we have 20 characters. For each of them, we have 5 clues cards for each of them. So the characters are linked to STEM fields. We try to have them from different nationalities, but they have all something in common. They all faced problems to be scientists related to their gender. Here is an example of the cards. This is the, yeah, we have, so you can guess quiz. And these actually, they are not easy. They are difficult for students. So the teachers have to take these cards, bring them in the classroom, and then give to students time to do this. So students can bring the cards at home, because the idea is also that the students try to guess who is the character, but they also make a some kind of relation on this character, and they understand, so they have to find the gender stereotypes. So it's not a, it doesn't have to be an easy job for them, because also they have to understand the story of this character and understand why he was discriminated. So here there is a phrase from the Evangel of Matthew. If for to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have abundance, but from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Then he's a voluntary professor. Then there is some kind of male and female. Then there is history, different percentage, and yeah, they have to go home, take these hints, these clues, and guess who is the character. Here I will tell you, he's Margaret Rossiter. And actually she introduced the Matilda effect in science. This is her paper. So she was studying also, she was doing social studies in science. And this Matilda effect is the same of the Matthew effect, the phrase that I read you before. So it's the tendency of individuals to accrue social or economic success in proportion to their initial level of popularity. And she found that this is also for women in science. And so they are affected, let's say like this, by this Matilda effect. So less we speak about women and less they are actually addressed as scientists properly, and then they will have less. This is the other game. It's called Fill Gender Stereotypes, and we give to, so the teacher give to students 3 cards each. One card is an incipit card, the other one is an item, and the third one is an emotion. And here is an example. And the students have to say how they feel when they read the incipit, they see the object, and then they read this emotion. The incipit are something like, here is written, now it's your, today is your birthday, you are opening your gift, but it's not what you wanted. Then there are some colors, and then the feeling is that you feel respected. Now the teachers have to be good in try to make the students tell their story, starting from these 3 cards, and guiding them in taking out how do they feel with respect to what they found. Of course, they have to try to guide the students to think about STEM issues, like yeah, this one, there is another one, but usually as objects we also have like telescopes or other things. So they have to try to understand if there is some negative feeling of the students, I don't know, regarding what is written here, like regarding the telescope, why it's like this, and how they can help then the students to overcome this feeling. And yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a very good talk. And I think it's very important also to educate not only students, but also the teachers, and to change old practices, which is being fed into their minds. And we did notice that, but one of the events that we have organized this year in the school in France. And in fact, it was very surprising because the teachers, they don't even know that there is an International Women and Girls Day in Science. So
Yeah.
that's the level of awareness which is there at the school level, and even at the college level, it's the same story. So, but I think college, they are still informed, but they don't do anything to create the awareness. So the students, they don't know anything at the university level that such days exist and there are all sorts of discriminations and etc. Or how difficult or easy the STEM field is going to be and STEM career is going to be. So I think
now we have also a project that if we find money, I mean, because the cards are there, everything is there. So if we have teachers that want to do it, they can just free to download the cards and then contact us. And we can do it everywhere in the world, of course. So it's not only related to Italy. And now we want to do another project related also with the parents. Because the big problems are this one. I mean, it's the society, so teachers, that are the first people that they met, but also parents. I mean, it's not nice to say this, but also parents are not trained in recognize what they do to their child. Of course, they do it. They don't do it on purpose, but they do it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It is actually the influence of the society, and that is what is being implemented through the parents into the way they deal with the children and everything. So yeah, that's good. Very nice. Thank you very much, Clementina. And I'm sure we will contact you if we want to use the cards in future for the events that we organize. Any questions for Clementina? Right. So I don't see any questions, but if you have, or if anybody, if you have any question, or if you want to give any suggestion, or if you want to share your experience, then please do so. I see Nectaria is here. We can always ask her because she's always excited to discuss. I don't know if she can hear us. Or Adriana, if you want to say something. All right. So I don't know. Shailaja, could you hear us? Do you want to say something? What's going on in India today? Are they organizing any International Women's Day event? I'm sure they're doing that. Ah, yes. Okay. Yes, Adriana, please.
Yes, well, here in Argentina, we are organizing several activities, mostly because for the conditions, the actual conditions of scientific research, not only for women, but in general, scientific research here has been under a lot of stress because of lack of funding from the government and an open campaign against scientists in general. I don't know if you have listened the 68 Nobel Prizes pleading for our president to do not please dismantle our scientific network. Today, all the females in the Institute for Astronomy and Space Physics and all the institutes in general, all the female researchers and students and administrative support, we are all having these manifestations, demonstrations before noon with our pleading for the government to reconsider the situation. So it's not, and of course there are male colleagues that are joining us in this kind of struggle because it's really serious for the scientific community. Also for the scholarships, and it's a really tight situation we are living right now. So there are a lot of public points where people will gather in the afternoon. They will be taking pictures and stuff. Hopefully the police won't. Okay, I don't know what will happen, but we are going to protest. So here we are in the fight still.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Always a regular fight. If you want to change things, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, no. And well, and we are also having this for colleagues in Mexico. On this seminars we are providing like first aid resources for women researchers to succeed in their careers, with some pieces of advice that we have found very useful along our careers. For instance, in terms of the publishing with their maiden name, for instance, not the name when we got married, because for instance, in the Harvard ADS, you won't find your previous works otherwise, and you will have a drawback finding financial support and stuff. And by the way, you can change partner, you can be a widow, whatever, life is long. So we encourage people to, at least in the professional area, to stick to their maiden name for publication, for instance. So we have this set of pieces of advice that we found useful along the career to help the new students to progress. So I'm afraid I do not have very nice news from this part of the world, but we are still in the fight.
Yes, I think it's important to support each other, and we understand it's important to do that. Yeah. Anyway, so best of luck. Anyone else who would like to share something?
Thank you. We're going to need it.
Yes. Okay. So if we don't have any further suggestions or comments, then I would like to close the session today and stop the recording. And I would like to thank you all very much for your participation and for making this International Women's Day a successful event again, as every year. So I think it's because of your commitment also to this cause that we managed to continue to have such events. And I think at one point we should come up with a proper network and try to push few ideas and few things which should be kind of acceptable to everyone, and to support to provide support to people. I think it's very important that we, like Adriana says, it's very difficult to bring change. And so it's important that people are together to do that. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.